At the beginning, after Tim heard what Carol said about Jason's strength, his face was still a little anxious and moved. However, after hearing that Jason was a multi-attribute spiritual master, his previous expression was the boy disappeared without a trace, only deep regret. "Oh, forget it, Carol, you have to go to the Northwest residential area anyway. When you and Hanks are talking to Dini Shah and Temujin, you should also talk to Jason, by the way. For the sake of as a 6th-level intermediate spiritual master, he has some potential, but you two are mainly looking for Dini Shah and Temujin, and Jason is irrelevant," Tim said regretfully, with a look in his eyes. There is no longer the expression of pity for seeing a peerless genius. Tim's attitude towards Jason was incomprehensible to everyone present. "Master Tim, that Jason is only 22 years old now, and he has extremely profound knowledge in elixir science. When he was in the kingdom of Lubanar, the elixir master tower, and I went to the northwest of Wat, and the northwest master Benjamin, the 7th-level low-level elixir master, highly praised Jason's elixir knowledge. In addition, when Jason was a 6th-level intermediate spiritual master, he was so powerful that he could kill Adkins. A 7th-level low-level gold-type imperial spiritual master, what Carol stood up and spoke with confusion on his face. With Jason's talent, even some core disciples in the spiritual master tower may not be able to compare with him. Sir Tim also showed great interest before, but why is he suddenly not interested in Jason? Interested, but not valued? Not only Carol, but also the other guardians present were also confused. Although the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower are collectively called the Twin Towers, they are not as harmonious as outsiders see them. Instead, they are full of competition. Otherwise, there is no need to see geniuses, and they are ready to win over each other before the competition begins. Now, a genius like Jason is something that both parties should pay more attention to. However, the situation shown by Tim made everyone present full of doubts. Seeing the doubts on everyone's faces, Timmu smiled, and then said with a hint of regret, "Then Jason is indeed gifted with a nose." Judging from the performance that Carol had previously described, it was even more amazing than some of the core disciples in our spiritual master tower. "But you shouldn't, absolutely shouldn't, but he is a multi-attribute spiritual master." Multi-attribute spiritual master? Mr. Tim, how do you say this? Aren't there some disciples in our spiritual master tower who are dual-attribute spiritual masters? Master? Carol still had confusion on his face. In Stern, the vast majority of spiritual masters can only sense one spiritual element and show extremely high affinity to one spiritual element, but there are some extremely rare spiritual masters who can sense both species, even with a variety of spiritual elements. Such spiritual masters are extremely rare. After training, they can become spiritual masters of dual or even 3 lines, and their combat effectiveness is often much stronger than that of spiritual masters of 1 line. In front of the round table, Tim shook his head. In our spiritual master tower, there are indeed dual system spiritual masters, and there are even 2-3 system spiritual masters. It would be okay if Jason is dual system. We can accept it as being of 3 elements, but if you said before that you can see at least 4 attributes of earth, fire, metal, and wood from him, then there is a problem. Looking at the confusion on everyone's faces, Tim added, multi-attribute spiritual masters are often stronger than spiritual masters of the same level, and have combat power that ordinary spiritual masters cannot match. Then the reason why Jason can killing Adkins at the 6th level intermediate spiritual master level, I think has a lot to do with him being a multi-attribute spiritual master, but Boo was only at a low level. When you are at a low level, if a spiritual master wants to advance, he only needs to simply absorb and improve his own spiritual power, and the conflict between different systems will not be too great. But once he reaches the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master, then it's completely different. If a spiritual master wants to advance to the 7th level of low-level Emperor Spiritual Master, he must have some understanding of the laws of elements, and spiritual masters of multiple systems will show their shortcomings at this time. No matter how genius a spiritual master is, it is difficult for him to gain insights from several systems at the same time. Therefore, spiritual masters from multiple systems often only choose one system for enlightenment after reaching the 6th level of senior spiritual master. An imperial spiritual master who has been promoted to the lower level of the 7th level. This will not have much impact when the spiritual master is at a low level, but at a high level, the spiritual power intensity between the 7th level and the 6th level is too different. If the spiritual power between the various departments' unbalanced power will cause conflicts within the spiritual master's body. At that time, not only will the spiritual master's strength not be improved, but it will also pose a threat to the spiritual master's life. Therefore, the only way for a multi-system spiritual master is to the problem lies in the realization of multiple systems at the same time. Tim's face was full of regret. A spiritual master has limited energy in his life and can learn very little. Many spiritual masters spend their entire lives. He can only reach the 7th level imperial spiritual master. That is why he specializes in studying. Everyone present is an 8th level imperial spiritual master who wants to comprehend multiple elements at the same time. I think you understand what this means. Tim paused, looked at the thoughtful people present, and suddenly said, however, the most important thing is not the spiritual perception, but the cultivation of skills. When you are at a low level, multi-type spiritual masters can practice whatever kind of skills, but once they reach the 7th level of the imperial spirit master, it is different. If there is no special skills, not to mention the difference between different spiritual powers, the skills there will be conflicts, and multi-system exercises are often much more difficult than ordinary exercises. In Stern Continent, any dual system exercise that can be practiced by an imperial spiritual master is at least a star-level exercise. And the 3-line martial arts that allow the imperial spirit master to practice are at least moon-level techniques. Our spiritual master, Ta family has a great career, so we still have these 2 types, but Jason is at least a 4th-line spiritual master. With the talent that Jason has shown now, I have no doubt that Jason can advance to the 7th level of the imperial spiritual master. It is not impossible to even gain enlightenment from multiple systems. But what happens next? Tim stared at it. Looking at everyone present, without the support of his skills, Jason will always be able to stop here. A 1st-level multi-system imperial spiritual master, no matter how strong he is, how strong can he be, and in the spiritual world? If you can't advance to the master level, what can you do no matter how profound your attainments in elixir science are? Speaking of this, Tim couldn't help but reveal a wry smile on his face, with regret in his brows. If Jason had been favored by the spiritual master tower since he was a child, then when he was a child, the spiritual master tower could tailor-make his future training direction and the discipline he would choose. But now, it is already too late. Jason is a 6th-level senior spiritual master. Basically everything has been finalized and cannot be changed much. When he thought that such a genius was ruined because of this, Tim felt pity in his heart. After listening to what Tim said, everyone in the room was silent. The reason why the Twin Towers hold this continental elite competition and select elites from all over the continent is not to value the current strength of these elites, but to value their future potential. Although Jason is strong, he is one whose potential has been exhausted. Even if he is an Emperor Spirit Master who successfully advances to the 7th level in the future, he will be nothing to a behemoth like the Spirit Master Tower. Any of the guardians present will be nothing. He can sweep him away, so naturally he is not taken seriously by Tim. In that case, Mr. Tim, then Hanks and I will go to the Northwest residential area tonight to find Dini Shah and Temujin. Carol said in the room. Tim nodded and said, this matter is settled. If there is nothing else, everyone can leave. At the end of the meeting, the 8 people present left the room in perfect agreement. As the supreme commander of the Spiritual Master Tower in this continental elite competition, Tim never imagined that he had made a decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. Every time he thought about it, he was full of regrets. At night, the entire inner city's buildings are brightly lit, and various exquisite spiritual lamps emit bright light, reflecting the building area as if it were daytime. Master Jason, when the competition is over, if you can be selected, you can become a disciple of our spiritual master tower. Our spiritual master tower welcomes you with both hands. In the room where Jason was, Carol stood up, there was a smile on his face, but Hanks stood quietly by the side without any expression. Haha, Master Carol, I will consider it when the time comes. Jason also smiled. Okay, then, Master Jason, we won't stay any longer. Let's say goodbye. Carol bowed her hands to Jason. Go away, you too. Carol smiled, and then he and Hanks walked out of Jason's room. For such a long time, Hanks didn't speak. For Hanks, Jason Sen, a player who has been rated as having no potential by Mr. Tim, naturally cannot let him waste any energy. After Carol and Hanks both left, the other contestants from the surrounding rooms walked out. Jason, did Mr. Carol of the Spiritual Master Tower invite you to join the Spiritual Master Tower? Sri Lanka and others had excited faces. Previously, Mr. Carol also went to Dini Shah and Taimujina. It is said that he hopes that the two of them will join the Spiritual Master Tower after qualifying in the competition, and also promised that they will be taken seriously in the Spiritual Master Tower. Everyone's rooms are not far away. Carol and Hanks entered Dini Shah and Temujin's room first, and finally entered Jason's room. Such a big move was naturally blocked. The surrounding players were all aware of it. Jason, you are really powerful. Before the competition started, you were noticed by the people from the Spiritual Master Tower. However, Lord Carol and the others were all in Dinish's room before. We chatted for a long time. But it was only for a while in your room. Don't tell me that you rejected the two of them, right? Many players looked at Jason with envy on their faces. But Jason smiled. No words. With Jason's keen observation, although Carol had been quite enthusiastic before, Jason could feel that the other party didn't think much of him, especially the performance of Hanks, let alone that. And according to what others said, the previous performance of Carol and the others in Dini Shah and Temujin's room was able to make Jason feel something. But Jason didn't feel the slightest bit disappointed in his heart. What made him curious was the performance of Carol and the others. Isn't this Continental Elite competition held by these twin towers? Why do you come here to pull people before the competition starts? I also hope that after qualifying, I can join the Spiritual Master Tower. Jason frowned, sensitively sensing something was wrong. The way Carol and Hanks were acting now was as if a top genius had appeared in a certain country on the continent, and then various colleges in that country went to recruit students. It's like pulling people in. With the strength of the Spiritual Master Tower, there is no need to do this. Haha, Jason. Just when Jason was confused, Master Benjamin's shout suddenly came to his ears. I saw in the corridor not far away, Master Benjamin walked towards Jason with two old men with white beards. One of them was Master What from the Alchemist Tower. Master Benjamin, Master What? Jason had a smile on his face, and then his eyes fell on the old man next to Master What. This is an old man with a white beard wearing a shabby elixir robe, ordinary eyes. At first glance, he looked like a kind old man next door. However, Jason felt an extremely strong aura from the other person. The other person did not deliberately release it, but was just restrained. In his heart, Jason felt that everything around him was involuntarily attracted to him. Master, extremely master. Jason's eyes narrowed slightly. This kind of momentum has only been felt by Jason in this life from Wayne, who had regained his strength. Sun Feng, the 8th level senior imperial spiritual master and the top expert in the entire Northwest, there is no such momentum either. What surprised Jason even more was the robe on the old man. An ordinary person would have thought it was an ordinary elixir master's robe that had turned white after washing, but with Jason's eyesight, he could see it at a glance. The material of this elixir master's robe is extremely not simple, and it is not even simple enough to surprise Jason. Faced with Jason's question, What did not answer, but smiled and said, What, Master Jason, don't you know that we can go in and sit down? Haha, Master what, you are joking, you three please come in. After Benjamin and others entered the room and the door was closed, What said seriously, Master Jason, this is Elder Sevlin of my Elixir Master Tower. Elder Sevlin is an 8th level senior peak Emperor Spiritual Master, is also extremely profound in spiritual medicine. After hearing about the Master, Elder Sevlin wanted to meet you in person. Hey, Protector what, you don't have to be so serious. I just heard that an amazing genius in elixirs appeared in the Northwest, so I came here to take a look. Kevlin looked extremely kind, with a peaceful smile on his face. Master Kevlin, if I guess correctly, the Master should be an 8th level elixir emperor. I think the Master's visit this time should not be it's just a casual look. If you have anything, please tell me. Jason said straight to the point. But he was quite confused. What happened today? Everyone in the Spiritual Master Tower and Spiritual Medicine Master Tower were, come here. And there is an 8th level Elixir Master, coming to the Elixir Master Tower. As a Elixir Master, Jason knows what the identity of the 8th level Elixir Master is. In the Elixir Master Academies of the 4 Empires. It is definitely the most top existence, and its status in the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower will definitely not be low. However, after hearing what Jason said, Master What was stunned. Master Jason, have you heard of Elder Sevlin before? He asked in his mouth. No. Jason shook his head. But, how did you know that Elder Kevlin was an 8th level, low-level elixir emperor? Besides, Sevlin and Benjamin also looked at Jason with doubts on their faces. Jason smiled and said, It's very simple. If I guessed correctly, the Elixir Master's robe worn by Master Sevlin should be woven with spirit yarn mixed with ice silkworm snow silk and spirit linen cloth. Whether it is spiritual yarn, ice silkworm snow silk or spiritual linen cloth are extremely rare materials on the mainland. The elixir robe woven from the mixture of the three can enable the Elixir Master to prepare high-level elixirs. It will not have any impact on the prepared medicines and materials, and it can also improve the Elixir Master's control when preparing. As an Elixir Master, when preparing high-level elixir potions in the laboratory, any slight influence from the surroundings can have a huge impact on the result of the preparation, and the Elixir Master robe made of these 3 materials is definitely the best treasure among Elixir Masters, but the average Elixir Master does not need to deliberately wear such elixir robes when preparing low-level elixirs, or even 7th-level Imperial elixirs. After all, these 3 materials it is too rare, and only Elixir Masters who need to prepare 8th-level Imperial elixirs have such strict requirements for Elixir Master robes, so I guess Master Kevlin should be an 8th-level Elixir Emperor Master. As Jason spoke, Kevlin's eyes lit up. Haha, Master Jason, I heard Master What praise your achievements in elixirs before. I didn't believe it at first, but now I believe it. Kevlin had a smile on his face. I saw Master Jason take a second look at my robe earlier. I thought Master Jason just saw that my robe was extraordinary. Unexpectedly, he even analyzed the materials. It is very clear, and it is based on this that I can see the level of the Elixir Master. I think even some 7th-level Elixir Masters may not have the attainments of Master Jason. Jason smiled and said nothing. In fact, with his attainments, even if he does not analyze the Elixir Master's robe, he can guess the level of Sevlin from other places. Since Master Jason is so frankly, I won't beat around the bush anymore. I greatly admire and appreciate Master Jason's attainments in elixir medicine. I hope Master Jason can join my Elixir Master Tower. I can't guarantee anything else. At least I can guarantee Master Jason. As a senior disciple, I hope Master Jason can think about it carefully. As soon as Kevlin said these words, What's expression changed. Among all the disciples in the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, the core disciples are undoubtedly the most noble. In addition, they are the senior disciples. As Elder Keflin, the highest level that can be approved is just a senior disciple. But when he thought of Jason's profound knowledge in elixirs, what felt relieved? Jason frowned slightly. Master Sevlin, I'm very curious. Isn't this continental elite competition held in the Twin Towers? Why did you just— Jason didn't finish the sentence, but everyone present was confused. Got what he meant. Master Jason, I won't hide it from you. Kevlin said sternly, as the top powers in the continent, our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower and Spiritual Master Tower are collectively called the Twin Towers, but no one is convinced by the other. Everyone wants it. The reason for annexing the other side is just because we are afraid of the other side's strength. In addition, if there is a conflict without our deterrence, I am afraid that the entire continent will be in chaos in an instant, so we just maintain the status quo, and every elite competition is the battlefield where we compete. Whichever side absorbs more talents will be more advantageous. Listening to Sevlin's words, Jason quickly understood that the Twin Towers are the top forces on the mainland. In fact, they all want to annex each other. One mountain cannot tolerate two tigers, and no one wants to have someone with the same name as themselves. However, in addition to the Twin Towers, there are also 3 cities and 4 empires on the mainland, so the Twin Towers cannot really be in opposition. Get Up can only determine a winner among the talented players in this elite competition every time. Master Jason, I heard about your multiple attributes. From what? After you join my Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, I will try my best to find a method for you that is suitable for you, a method that is suitable for me. Jason was stunned, with a trace of doubt on his face. Master Jason, you don't know the restrictions on your promotion as a multi-attribute spiritual master, right? Sevlin also had a hint of surprise on his face. Seeing Jason's blank face, Kevlin smiled bitterly and said, Master Jason, a multi-attribute spiritual master, although his strength is far superior to that of ordinary spiritual masters at low levels. But after reaching the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, there will be many restrictions. Kevlin immediately stated the restrictions on multi-system spiritual masters in full. The content of what he said was almost the same as what the spiritual master Tatum said. There is also this matter. Jason's face suddenly showed a hint of astonishment. Regarding the restrictions of this multi-system spiritual master, Jason, who was not a spiritual master in his previous life, was not very clear about it, but what Jason said about this Kevlin was not clear. I'm not too worried. Jason's multiple attributes are not because Tim and Coughlin think that Jason has a strong affinity for multiple spiritual elements, but because Jason has practiced the spiritual god art. Power has no specific attributes, and there are no restrictions when absorbing spiritual rings, which is what leads to this phenomenon. Although Kevlin made it clear that there are very few techniques on the entire continent that can be practiced by multi-attribute spiritual masters, but for some reason, in Jason's mind, he should not be stuck here after he abandoned the spiritual god technique. Above the skills. Faced with Sevlin's invitation, Jason did not agree immediately, but decided to think about it again. However, combined with the attitudes of the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, as well as his own future, Jason actually already had an idea in his mind. Answer. Because the Continental Elite Tournament held in the Twin Towers will face elites from all over the continent, the talented players from all over the mainland come at different times. The Continental Elite Tournament will officially start 1.5 months later on June 1st. In the remaining month and a half, Jason did not take any rest, but practiced every day, working hard to improve his strength. In fact, not only Jason, but also other players from all over the mainland are working hard and practicing hard. For geniuses like them, although 1.5 months is not long, if they continue to practice hard, it can improve their strength to a certain extent. At the very least, it can also allow them to adjust their bodies to the most perfect state, allowing them to maintain this peak combat power. The geniuses who can come here are not fools. Except for some very nervous players or players who have absolute confidence in themselves, no other players dare to take it lightly. having fun is nothing to them. If they can standing out in this mainland elite competition, facing them will be an extremely bright future, especially those players from outside the four empires. As the top power in the mainland, the Twin Towers are undoubtedly the holy land in their hearts. As long as they can, entering the Twin Towers has extremely profound significance for themselves, their family, and even the country. They must go all out and put pressure on them, not only their own future, but also their families, the fate of their country. As time slowly passed, the winning players from various local selection competitions on the continent came to Lingdo City one after another. Finally, the day of the competition was coming. May 31st, 2035 in the spiritual calendar. In the early morning, Jason stood on the rooftop of the highest building complex in the northwest residential area, looking at the red sun that had just revealed half of its face in the east. Although it was summer, the morning was still quite cool. Let's watch the sunrise on the rooftop early in the morning. Renault also walked up to the rooftop, looking at his son with a trace of relief on his face. Yes. Jason looked at the rising sun at the far end of the east and smiled and nodded. Master, the sun always makes people feel so kind. Claire also walked up. Her rosy face was filled with vitality, and the red spots on her face revealed a unique beauty under the reflection of the sun. She stood next to Jason contentedly, her eyes flowing, and her lips pursed with a smile. The two of you have been spending your time practicing these days, and you haven't relaxed for a long time, Renault said. The way of cultivation is to combine work and rest. You should also let yourself relax sometimes, and don't let yourself be too tired. Father, you are not the same. Jason smiled and said. That's right, Uncle Renault practiced harder than the young master and I. Claire also smiled and spoke out, her voice was clear and sweet, like the chirping of an oriole. Haha, it seems that I am really not qualified to educate you two in this regard, Renault couldn't help laughing out loud. Actually, having pursuits is really satisfying. Jason said with a faint smile, what he has been pursuing in his life is the path to the supreme medicine god. Although the training process is extremely difficult, watching himself getting closer to his goal makes him feel people feel extremely happy from the bottom of their hearts. Indeed, Renault nodded and clenched his fists involuntarily. At the beginning, he just wanted to spend the rest of his life in the small town of Kodo. However, Jason's promotion to the first-level spiritual disciple and the blood concentration gave him the pursuit of letting Jason return to the family. After returning to the family, his meridians were cured, and Renault was promoted to the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master, giving him a new pursuit. Augustus' attacks and the pain of broken arms made Renault suffer and despair. But time and time again, he survived. Now the Emperor Spiritual Master, who has advanced to the 8th level of low level, has even killed veteran intermediate emperors like Lyndon. Spiritual Master, there has always been a seed slowly sprouting in Renault's heart. He needs to improve his strength until one day, he has enough strength to set foot on the Daos family of the Cairo Empire, defeat his enemies, and snatch back his beloved woman. Others always think that his never-ending cultivation is very difficult, but no one knows that deep down in his heart, he is enjoying the feeling of cultivation, enjoying his strength getting stronger little by little, and getting closer to his goal. This feeling made him feel satisfied and gave him hope. From this point of view, the personalities of their father and son are indeed very similar. Is that so? Claire couldn't help but be confused, but after seeing Jason next to her, a smile appeared on Claire's face. Yes, pursuit is really exciting. Satisfaction, and my pursuit, Claire, is to stand by the young master's side forever. Looking at Jason beside her, Claire's eyes were blurred. Breathe slowly. A red sun finally jumped up into the sky, illuminating the entire continent. On the silent rooftop, 3 figures stood there quietly, a scene of tranquility and serenity. In the early morning, the light of dawn appeared on the sky, and the Twin Towers Lingdo City. The fiery sunshine fell from the sky, and there was a slightly eager breath floating in the air. All the players stayed quietly in their rooms, waiting for the start of the mainland elite competition. As time passed slowly, suddenly all contestants from all over the mainland gather in the hall of the administrative center. A rumbling voice suddenly came from the administrative center in the center of the building, and it was instantly transmitted to all the contestants. In the ears. In the rooms in each area, geniuses from all over the mainland were guided to slowly walk out of their respective rest areas and walked towards the administrative center. The leaders of each force also followed the players and headed to the administrative center. There are approximately more than 1,000 geniuses who have stood out from the major forces in the mainland and come to this Spirit Do city. Although they cannot be compared with the nearly 10,000 in the Northwest selection competition, they are still a very large number. In terms of talent, the various forces from the mainland cannot compare with the 10,000 people in the Northwest at that time. There are geniuses from the 4 major continental empires such as the Cairo Empire, the Kamikaze Empire, the Salem Empire, and the Wei-Tian Empire, as well as geniuses from some remote forces. Everyone here is considered a leader in their respective powers, but when they reach the big stage of the Twin Towers, they are all one of many geniuses. The hall in the administrative center of Lingdo City is huge, with thousands of people, including many players, many team leaders, the staff in the Twin Towers Administrative Center, and people from all forces in Lingdo City gathered together, but it didn't seem crowded. When all the geniuses arrived at the front of the hall, there are rows and rows of people gathering together. Look, Melting Saint. It's Melting Saint. From the Huiga family of the Kamikaze Empire, a 7th-level low-level wind-type imperial spiritual master. He is a very powerful guy. I heard that he has understood some of the original laws of the wind system. I hope not to encounter him. Jason walked with Dini Shah, Okaso, and others. Jason, look. Okaso pointed to a beautiful woman in a white gauze dress in the distance. There seemed to be a faint light overflowing from the woman's body. She was peerless and beautiful. It's Sophia, don't look at her. His appearance may seem weak, but his strength is terrifying. He is a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master of the Wei-Tian Empire, a spiritual master of the light system. Among all geniuses, he definitely has the strength to hit the top 10 in the overall ranking. Huh? Jason looked at the beautiful woman who seemed to be free from smoke and dust. He had to say that among the beauties Jason had seen in this life, in terms of being born in the world, this Sophia was definitely ranked first. Before that, Sun Feng and the others have also collected intelligence for Jason and other players from the Northwest. Although there is no detailed information, Jason and the others also know the group of people at the top of the rankings. Look, it's the Northwest team, the woman with golden hair, should be Dini Shah from the Northwest. Is that her? I heard that she is only 27 years old and is a 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. Everyone should be careful when encountering her. By the way, I heard that there are 2 low-level 7th-level emperor spiritual masters in the Northwest this time, and there is also a young man who seems to be an earth type. It should be the extremely tough young man in the team, Temujin. This time, 2 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual masters appeared in the Northwest. It's incredible. Jason and the others collected information from others. The same goes for others. During the past month and a half, the information about the appearance of 2 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual masters in the Northwest was also collected by others. After all, the level cannot be faked. However, people only pay attention to the 2 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual masters, Dini Shah and Temujin. As for Jason and others, no one knows about them. Most people pay attention to only the 7th-level imperial spiritual masters. No one cares about the 6th-level senior spiritual master. After all, there are too many 6th-level senior spiritual masters present. Almost 60% of the players, nearly 700 people, are all 6th-level senior spiritual masters. How many spiritual masters are there? Pay attention one by one, there is not so much time at all. Moreover, in the minds of normal people, real masters are usually born among 7th-level imperial spiritual masters. This is also the past practice. Walking in the hall of the administrative center, everyone was talking a lot, reminding each other of the peerless geniuses who were the top in their respective powers. Looking at these geniuses, Jason's heart burned with fighting spirit. Is it him? Suddenly, Jason's eyes fell on the team of the Salem Empire, but he saw an acquaintance of his. At the same time that Jason saw him, the man from the Salem Empire also accidentally saw Jason. The two looked at each other in the hall, and the man couldn't help but be shocked. Heroes? A slight smile formed on the corner of Jason's mouth. This young man in the talented team of the Salem Empire is surprisingly the son of Sir Eludiba, the governor of Chi'er province, Kiros. But yes, Kiros was promoted to the 6th level of senior spiritual master at the age of 24. Now 2 years have passed, and his strength is probably even more terrifying. With his strength, it is extremely normal for him to enter this continental elite competition. However, in the information obtained by Jason, the Salem Empire did not have information about Kiros. With Kiros' talent of being promoted to senior spiritual master at the age of 24, and being baptized by the Blood Abyss spiritual pool, coupled with the background of the Phil family, the first family in Urshing province, and the fact that Kiros has not been promoted to the 7th level of low-level imperial spiritual master in the past 2 years makes Jason quite puzzled. How could it be him? However, on the other side of the hall, Kiros was completely stunned. There was shock in his eyes, and he could hardly believe his own eyes. Jeffma. Kiros hurriedly called a player next to him. Kiros, what's going on? Yifeng, a young man with long blonde hair, turned around and wondered. Kiros pointed in the direction of Jason and said anxiously, Jeff Ma, in the Northwest team, that one, have you ever heard of a player with long black hair? Northwestern team? The blonde young man pointed towards Kiros's hand, looked at it carefully, shook his head and said, I don't know, this time there is a member of the Northwest team. 2 low-level 7th-level imperial spiritual masters appeared, but one is named Dini Shah, and the other is a strong young man named Temujin. As for this black-haired young man, who knows that he came from that nook in the Northwest? Black-haired young man? On the side, another player couldn't help but said, that one is called Jason. This time, 2 low-level imperial spiritual masters appeared in the Northwest, so I studied their information carefully. This Jason Sen is only 22 years old and is a 6th-level senior spiritual master. He may be very powerful in a few years now, the player couldn't help but shake his head. It turns out there are too many players like a 6th-level senior spiritual master, so don't worry about it, the blonde young man said nonchalantly, then he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Kiros in confusion. What about Kiros? From your tone, it seems that you know this young man? This is unlikely. One is in the Northwest, and the other is our Salem Empire. They are not the same. Jason? Kiros muttered twice slowly at the corner of his mouth, and then smiled and said, I don't know him, but I saw that he was quite young, so I asked around. With Rankelo's eyesight, he was naturally sure that Jason was Jace from the Namori family who was in Chi'er province 2 years ago. Although I don't know why Jason appeared in the Northwest team and changed his name to Jason, and has disappeared in Chi'er province for the past 2 years, but since the other party is anonymous, Kiros does not want to tell Jason. This Jace is Cornhill, who killed the 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master 2 years ago. Now 2 years later, I'm afraid his strength is even more terrifying. Kiros snorted in his heart. Lafonzi. While Kiros was shocked, Jason set his sights on the Kamikaze Empire's team and looked at Livens, who was wearing a black cloak. When he got the information on the geniuses of each group, Jason immediately paid attention to the 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master of the Desiari family. The cold gaze I felt that day must have been Lavanzi of the Decker family. A slight sneer appeared at the corner of Jason's mouth. I hope you won't meet me during the battle, otherwise as a strong man, Jason trusts his own intuition. Especially as a master of technical flow and medicine, Jason's body is extremely sensitive. When he first arrived at Lingdo City that day, Jason felt a cold murderous intent coming from the building not far away. Later, after Jason inquired, he learned that it was where the Kamikaze Empire's team lived. District, and then after seeing the player information of the Kamikaze Empire, Jason immediately set his target on Lavanzi. As the players continued to enter, the buzz in the hall became louder and louder. Geniuses appeared one after another in the hall. Although many players are ranked first in their respective factions among dozens of factions, there are about 20 Jasons who have reached the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master realm and can hit the top 10. According to statistics, there are about 20 people. Although these more than 20 players at the level of Emperor Spiritual Masters are all 7th level Emperor Spiritual Masters, there is also a huge difference between Emperor Spiritual Masters and Emperor Spiritual Masters. Before a real fight, no one can know the opponent's strengths and weaknesses. And in addition to these 20-odd Imperial Spiritual Masters, there might be some who have hidden strength or terrifying talents. Just like Jason, he is only a 6th level high-level Spiritual Master, but who knew that such a young man would actually have the strength to kill the genius of a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master. Except for the players from the Northwest, the rest of the people present were almost useless. Know that it belongs to the peerless genius hidden in the dark. Huh? Jason frowned. The entire hall of the administrative center suddenly became quiet for an instant. More than 1,000 talented players, as well as thousands of people present, almost all turned to look in the same direction. Jason also turned to look and saw a team of hundreds of people walking into the hall. It was the team of the Cairo Empire among the 4 empires. However, everyone's eyes fell on the front of the team, a young man in golden clothes. His long golden hair was tied behind his head, and he carried a golden sword on his back. His face was expressionless, and the whole person seemed to be a sword. The huge sword in its sheath, and the fierce aura rippling out of him, made people dare not look at him. Clark Gable. It's him. The number 1 genius in the Cairo Empire's team this time, a 7th level Senior Imperial Spirit Master. The highest level player in this competition, the only Senior Imperial Spirit Master. Various voices of discussion rang out everywhere in the hall. At the same time, there were the melting saint in a blue robe, Sophia who was as holy as a saint, Lifans in a black cloak, Temujin who was as strong as an iron tower, and the expressions were plain. The lake-like Dinisha throughout the hall, the real super geniuses at the top of the more than 1,000 geniuses were all staring at the young man in golden clothes, carrying a golden sword on his back. The eyes of all the geniuses are filled with terrifying fighting spirit. As geniuses, everyone present has absolute arrogance and confidence. As the highest level among all the players, and the only Senior Imperial Spiritual Master, Clark has naturally become the target that all players want to defeat. Clark. Jason silently looked at the golden figure in the distance and murmured, Clark Gable. Soon, more than 1,000 players from all over the mainland gathered at the end of the hall. Front end. After all the players arrived, a dozen figures walked out of the administrative center and came to the front of the hall, in front of all the players. Walking at the front of the team were 2 old men with gray beards and gray hair. They were Tim, the elder of the Spiritual Master Tower, and Master Kevlin, the elder of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower. Following closely behind them were Cass from the Twin Towers, Lori, Hanks, What and a group of guardians. Among these old men, the weakest ones are all 8th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Masters, and Elder Tim of the Spiritual Master Tower is even a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master. Standing there, they naturally exude their pressure. Dozens of them. The powerful pressure of the Emperor Spirit Master instantly silenced thousands of people in the entire hall, and no one dared to make the slightest sound. Welcome to participate in the Continental Elite competition held by our Twin Towers. A gentle voice came into the ears of each player. Although this voice was gentle, it made everyone present feel calm instantly, and at the same time, they felt the slightest surrender deep in their hearts. All over the continent, every region is selected by talented players. There are more than 1,000 geniuses in the entire continent. Tim stood in front of all the players, his eyes calm, looking down at the more than 1,000 geniuses in front of him, with a hint of voice in his voice. A touch of majesty, we, the Twin Towers, will select the strongest 100 people from among you to absorb into our Twin Towers and become our disciples. More than 1,000 people are competing for 100 places? I heard. Everyone couldn't help but be excited about this number. There was almost a 1/10 chance. Such a ratio was not insignificant. The entire competition is divided into 2 rings. The first ring is the trial space, from which 100 people are selected. These 100 people can join our Twin Towers and become the peripheral disciples of our Twin Towers. The second ring is the arena. In the competition, 100 people selected in the trial space will compete one by one to determine the final ranking. According to the different performance of each player, the treatment enjoyed by joining our Twin Towers will be different. Of course, this is the second round. Only then will he focus on the point that what you are going to do now is the first round of the trial. The rules of the trial are as follows. After a while, all of you will enter the Phantom World, the trial space of our Twin Towers. The entire trial space is divided into 10 levels, and what you need to do is to go up level by level until you die in the end. Exit the Phantom World. What? Death? Where exactly is this Phantom World? What if you die? All the players couldn't help but be shocked. This trial is actually in the Phantom World. This is really great. Even if I didn't make it into the top 100 in this competition, I can enter the Phantom World. This time I come to the elite competition, it's worth it. Entering the Phantom World trial, these players are so happy. If only I could be 30 years younger and choose Zhonghua here. A leader of a force said enviously. The activation of the Phantom World consumes a large amount of spiritual cores every time. This time the Twin Towers really spent a lot of money. Some people who knew what the Phantom World was had extremely expressions on their faces. Even the 8th level Emperor level team leaders from all over the continent couldn't help but be a little envious of his expression of surprise. Seeing the different expressions on the faces of everyone present, Tim smiled lightly and said, "Players who don't know the Phantom World, please rest assured. This Phantom World is composed of a 9th level Phantom Spirit Master and it is jointly arranged by an 8th level Emperor level Formation Master and an 8th level Emperor level Alchemy Master. It can allow your consciousness to enter an illusory space, but the feeling it gives you is extremely real. You can conduct trials in it. Once you die, your consciousness will return to the body, which will not do any harm to you. It is worth mentioning that the trials conducted in this Phantom World are the same as those in reality, and experiencing death can also temper your spirit." As Tim talked about the Phantom World, the eyes of all the players present lit up. As a spiritual master, there are many ways to improve one's strength. However, the most effective way to improve one's actual combat ability is undoubtedly the life and death trial. In battle after battle, life and death, spiritual masters are able to find out their own shortcomings and improve their combat effectiveness. Because of this, many geniuses on the mainland will join the adventurer team. As the adventurer team enters in the mountains with spiritual beasts, there is a life and death struggle with the spiritual beasts. However, there is a huge problem in doing this. If you look for a spiritual beast that is weaker than yourself, you may not get effective training. If you look for a spiritual beast that is stronger than yourself, then if you are not careful, it is very likely that you will not get effective training. It may be that he will perish, and the probability of death is really too high. The contradiction between the two is a headache for everyone. They are eager to go to the trial of life and death, but they don't dare to be too presumptuous. The Phantom World that Tim mentioned earlier can allow the player's consciousness to enter a unique space, and then conduct trials until death, so that they can truly experience the limits and pain of death. For a player, spiritual masters will have this great benefit. Therefore, after hearing what Tim said about the trial and the characteristics of this phantom world, all the players present couldn't help but burst into ecstasy. In fact, if possible, it would allow people to undergo a life and death trial. In the phantom world, every force wants to build it. But in fact, this phantom world is only owned by the Twin Towers, and they are jointly managed by the Twin Towers. Others, not even the 4 major empires on the mainland, have ever owned it. 8th level Emperor level formation masters and alchemy masters are rare on the entire continent, but they are not unavailable. However, 9th level phantom spirit masters are extremely difficult to appear. More importantly, building the phantom world requires a carrier was owned by the Twin Towers back then, and the spiritual cores and spiritual crystals consumed every time the phantom world was activated were also an extremely huge amount, which was simply not something ordinary forces could afford. Right away, each of you players will receive a spiritual stone. Each spiritual stone has a different number, which can count your points and allow you to enter the phantom world. Tim spoke again. As he spoke, rows of staff from the Twin Towers suddenly walked out from the side, each holding a plate in their hands. On the plate, there were pieces the size of thumbs, slightly exuding white. The spiritual stone of light. After being distributed by the staff, each contestant received a piece of spirit stone, which looked a little warm to the touch. It had different numbers engraved on it. Jason, of course, also got a piece with the number 520 on it, and Claire, the number of all the players in the Northwest is 521, and the numbers of all the players in the Northwest are close together, from 501 to 530. Okay, that's all. Tim said lightly, and then looked at Master Sevlin beside him, arriving at a door behind them that was engraved with countless complex formations. The two of them each took out a golden token and embedded it into the door. Suddenly, a soft light suddenly burst out from the door, lighting up the entire hall. An extremely powerful spiritual power fluctuation suddenly emitted from the entire hall. In everyone's eyes, the fan is about 15 meters high, more than 10 meters wide, and 1.5 meters thick. The door of the palace slowly opened. Everyone present looked eagerly at the palace gate, wanting to see what the legendary phantom world was like. However, what was disappointing was that everyone only saw the palace gate. There was a white light in the middle, but nothing else could be seen. Now, please invite all contestants to enter the phantom world. Tim said faintly. Under the arrangement, all the players entered the palace gate one by one, and Jason also stood in the Northwest team and walked into the palace gate with white light. Just after Jason walked into the palace door, the spirit stone in Jason's hand suddenly trembled and made a slight buzzing sound. At the same time, an indescribable strong suction force suddenly came from the spirit stone. Entering Jason's mind, rays of colorful light enveloped Jason's whole body. In the haze, Jason felt as if his spiritual consciousness had been separated from his body, and then injected into the spirit stone in his hand. Immediately afterwards, there seemed to be a strong suction force coming from somewhere. Jason seemed to be trapped in a strange passage and rushed over like a meteor. Brush. Jason, carrying a black heavy sword on his back, instantly appeared on a wasteland. Jason looked around. The entire space was deserted, without anything. Jason looked around curiously and at the same time observed his body. However, this observation surprised him. His mind was empty. The golden ball and cyan ball that were originally suspended in his mind disappeared at this moment. At the same time, Jason also discovered that the spiritual power in his body was not the same as in reality. The difference is that all he has in his meridians at this moment is the rich 6th order advanced spiritual power, but there is no black weird power. With a thought in mind, Jason tried to release his first level spiritual ring. However, what surprised him was that his spiritual ring also completely disappeared. What's going on? Jason couldn't help but wonder. At this moment, a light curtain suddenly appeared in front of him. Trialist, Jason, Northwestern Continent, points, 0 rank, nowhere trial space, first level of the phantom world. With the emergence of this information, a voice also sounded in Jason's mind. Jason, the entire trial space is divided into 10 floors. After the contestants enter, all spiritual skills and spiritual rings are unavailable. Only their own spiritual power and physical strength are available. The test on the first floor of this trial space is: there will be 100 level 5 iron-backed dragons attacking you at the same time. You can choose to kill or dodge. If you die in the middle, you will fail and be teleported out of the trial space. If you are still alive after one day, you will be teleported directly to the next step. Layer. Based on the performance of each player, a certain amount of points will be awarded. This is your first time entering the trial space and you have 5 minutes to prepare. Jason's expression couldn't help but change. The 5th level iron-backed earth dragon is a very powerful spiritual beast among the 5th level spiritual beasts, and any one of them is equivalent to a peak 5th level sect spiritual master. The most critical thing is that each player only retains spiritual power and physical strength, and cannot display any spiritual skills. Any player can only rely on his body and spiritual power to fight these spiritual beasts. This test is the basic strength of the spiritual master. Just like Jason's soul shock, Phoenix Flame triple wave, elemental barrier, etc., he can't use any spiritual skills. Even the black weird power is eliminated, and he can only fight with the most primitive spiritual power. And if 100 iron-backed earth dragons attack at the same time, even a 6th level spiritual master may not be able to resist them all. Jason estimates that some low-level 6th level spiritual masters in remote areas of the mainland may not be able to even reach this first level. Can pass. Of course, it is not difficult for Jason to kill these 100 iron-backed earth dragons. However, Jason has more to consider. You must know that this is the first level of the trial space, and there are 100 of them. Iron-backed earth dragon, and judging from the purpose of the Twin Towers to screen distant opponents. It is obvious that the trial space on the first level should be easier, and the further back it becomes, the harder it will be. On the 2nd and 3rd floors, the level of the spiritual beasts that appear is getting higher and higher, and the strength of the spiritual beasts is getting stronger and stronger. According to the prompt of this voice, it does not mean that all the spirit beasts must be killed. As long as they survive, they can enter the next level. So the main test is the spiritual master's combat and survival abilities. I can easily kill this iron-backed earth dragon, but what about the spiritual beasts on the lower floors? My swordsmanship has reached its peak. And all I have to do is to train and improve my body skills. Jason drew out the heavy sword from behind and kept thinking in his mind. The 5 minutes are coming soon. The trial begins. A voice rang in Jason's ears, and at the same time, within a radius of several hundred meters around Jason, a 3-meter-high, hill-like iron-backed earth dragon appeared. The gray-brown scales and red eyes, hard sharp horns, and iron-backed earth dragons all stared at Jason in the middle of the wasteland. Roar! 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 A series of roars sounded over the wilderness. 100 iron-backed earth dragons roared, and then rumbled. 100 iron-backed earth dragons moved their stubby limbs, aiming at Jason's location and charging fiercely. Their forehooves trampled on the wasteland. The entire wasteland trembled, and some rocks flew directly. And rise. Jason's spiritual consciousness spread out instantly, feeling the actions of all the iron-backed earth dragons around him. 100 iron-backed land dragons that were bigger than armored vehicles were galloping in a group, as if 100 heavy-duty trucks were crashing at them from all directions at the same time. Rumble! The earth trembled. With a distance of nearly 100 meters between the two sides, the iron-backed earth dragon rushed over in an instant. Like a mudslide, the endless group of iron-backed earth dragons instantly drowned Jason. Whoosh! Jason's figure kept darting through the many iron-backed earth dragons. His steps were nimble, like a twisting loach, passing through the gaps. With Jason's current strength, he only needed a moment. His skill is enough to kill all these iron-backed dragons and then enter the second level, but Jason did not choose this. In terms of swordsmanship, that lightning-like sword in the secret realm of the Spirit Pond in Akari Province, Jason, who has practiced under the attack for 8 months, has already reached the extremely high state of acting according to his heart and instinct. However, Jason has never been properly trained in his body skills. Now in this phantom world, Jason didn't want to waste such an excellent opportunity to practice his physical skills. Head after head of iron-backed earth dragons covered the area, making it watertight. Jason was faster than these 5th-level dragons. It's good for the iron-backed earth dragon to move quickly, but surrounded by all directions, no matter how fast Jason is, he still can't use it to his fullest. And although the iron-backed earth dragon is not fast, it is not clumsy. Although its limbs are short, its dragon tail like a giant whip is extremely flexible, and the dragon tails are constantly bombarded like lightning. Jason's eyes are like lightning, difficulties flew through the body of the iron-backed earth dragon. Hide! 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 Relying on the 6th-level advanced strength, Jason's body keeps making strange changes in this area. Only in this way can Jason dodge all attacks. This makes it possible for most of the enemies to evade all attacks. The dragon can attack Jason. Hide! Continuously dodging, without a single attack, the iron-backed dragons kept colliding, and the terrifying dragon tail made a sound in the air. However, it could only hit bursts of air, while Jason was like a flexible butterfly. Compared to monsters, small, the body of the iron-backed earth dragons quickly and strangely changed directions again and again, making the attacks of the iron-backed earth dragons in vain. Roar! As 5th-level spiritual beasts, these iron-backed earth dragons already have a certain degree of wisdom. Seeing Jason's flexible body roar almost at the same time, all the iron-backed earth dragons all roared and then seemed to be regular. 10 iron-backed earth dragons formed a circle and charged at Jason. The iron-backed earth dragons behind them blocked the gap between the two, and at the same time, dozens of dragon tails blocked all positions in the air and small gaps, aiming at Jason and rushing towards him. Uniform movements, leaving no gaps for Jason. No matter how fast Jason's figure is, after all, such a big body here, after dodging dozens of dragon tail and hoof claw attacks at extremely high speed, is still hit by the iron-backed earth dragon was hit on the body. Bang! With the help of this power, Jason was thrown far away, but there was no damage on his body. With his 8th-level Emperor-level body and 6th-level advanced spiritual power, this 5th-level iron-backed earth dragon could not hurt Jason at all. Still can't dodge it. Jason couldn't help but reveal a wry smile. He couldn't dodge the iron-backed earth dragon's attack, so how far could he go when he met the beautiful and powerful spiritual beast later? While thinking, Jason's eyes narrowed and he rushed into the group of iron-backed earth dragons again, constantly dodging in the hall of the administrative center, thousands of player leaders from various forces and some powerful leaders in Lingdo City casually standing in the hall. During the elimination in the trial space, people cannot see what is going on. Only the changes in the list will be disclosed to the public, and then the arena finals will be held publicly. At this moment, everyone in the entire hall is paying attention to the ranking list in the hall. There are more than 1,200 players. All the players clearly appear on it, showing that they are in the Phantom World. The number of layers, and the points at this moment. This Clark is really ruthless. He rushed towards Kiichi as soon as he came. Quick, Clark's points have increased astonishingly, leaving him far behind the second place. Then Leonardo from the Salem Empire is also terrifying, actually ranking second. Everyone in the hall was talking, and the leaders of each force were naturally looking for the names of their own players on the rankings. Among a group of people in the Northwest region, Xuanfeng and the others gathered together and looked at the rankings. The names on the list. Lord Xuanfeng, Princess Dinisha is indeed powerful. She has now entered the 3rd level of the trial space. The total points are ranked 15, not bad. Xuanfeng smiled. Temujin is not bad, ranked 21st. By the way, what about Jason? Some people expressed confusion. They did not find Jason's name at the top of the rankings. This time in the northwest of the continent, everyone is optimistic about these three people, and in the hearts of most people, Jason is their number one genius in the northwest. Players, naturally many people pay attention to Jason. What he said immediately made everyone look for Jason's name on the ranking list. What? Jason is ranked 1221st, at the bottom? Finally, someone found Jason's name on the ranking list, but it was at the bottom. Everyone in the northwest of the continent couldn't believe it. Swipe. At this moment, a player's name on the screen suddenly turned red, and behind his name, the word death also appeared. That player came from a remote force in the mainland, and was only a low-level 6th-level spiritual master. What is the content of the trial in this trial space? How come someone died, but Jason was still ranked last, but the dead player was ranked higher than Jason? Some people couldn't help but wonder. After all, no one knew what is the situation in this trial space. Naturally, it is impossible to guess what happened inside. However, everyone present is still full of confidence in Jason. After all, in the Northwest trials, Jason also fell behind at the beginning. He rushed up quickly at the end. Not long after, a figure walked out of the white-lit palace door. It was the player from a remote force. After the spirit stone in his hand was taken back by the staff of the Twin Towers, the player found that he was the first to be eliminated, and a look of frustration suddenly appeared on his face. Previously, when he was in the trial space, he rushed up to 100 iron-backed earth dragons without hesitation. At the beginning, he was killed by him due to his superiority in level and strength. There were more than 10 iron-backed earth dragons, but when he was surrounded by a large group of iron-backed earth dragons, tragedy happened. Under the bombardment of countless iron-backed earth dragons, he, a 6th-level low-level spiritual master, failed in a moment. After struggling to kill a few more iron-backed earth dragons, the player was instantly defeated by a group of violent iron-backed earth dragons. The dragon was trampled into flesh. Just when this player was feeling extremely frustrated, what faced him next was a crowd of people watching. This player, can you tell us what exactly is the content of the trial in the Phantom World? Yes, yes, yes. What is the content of the trial? The leaders of almost all the forces gathered around. They wanted to know what the content of the trial was. Xuanfeng, Renault, and others also gathered around curiously. They also wanted to know the reason why Jason's ranking was so low. Under the crowd, the player was dumbfounded. Unexpectedly, he who was the first to be eliminated would enjoy such treatment. With everyone watching, the contestant immediately spoke out the rules of the trial in front of everyone. What? Is this the rule? No wonder some players have rushed to the 3rd level, and some players are still on the 1st level. With such rules, some low-level geniuses cannot exert their strength at all. High-level geniuses have an absolute advantage. Tuale from the Shihuang tribe said. It's no wonder those at the top of the rankings are all 7th-level imperial spiritual masters. Someone next to me also spoke up. Indeed. Xuanfeng and others nodded. Generally, the reason why low-level spiritual masters can defeat high-level spiritual masters is because some extremely talented geniuses possess some extremely terrifying spiritual skills, or have strength that far exceeds that of others in a certain aspect. For example, some spiritual masters have extremely strong physical skills, some have extremely strong attack skills, some have extremely strong defensive skills, and so on. However, in this trial space, all spiritual skills and other skills cannot be used. All that is available are spiritual power and physical strength of the same level as one's own. For a 7th-level imperial spiritual master, there is definitely something that no one else can surpass. Advantage. But why is Jason ranked last? His level is not weak. Among the more than 1,000 contestants, there are more than 27th level Imperial Spiritual Masters and 6th level Advanced Spiritual Masters. There are nearly 700 people, but at least 500 people are at a lower level than Jason. No matter what, Jason can't be ranked last? After learning the rules, the team leaders from the Northwest were even more confused. After all, the original trial was easy to say, the points will increase quickly when you wait for the final plunder. So Jason didn't plunder at the beginning, but this time. What is the reason for the trial space? Everyone is confused and confused. How do they know that at this moment, Jason is training with the 100 iron-backed earth dragons in the first level? Even an iron-backed earth dragon is he who didn't kill him naturally ranked at the bottom in points. However, there are some players who have higher points than Jason, but they are only a little higher. These players are all low-level 6th level spiritual masters. They cannot defeat such a group of iron-backed earth dragons. They have no choice but to keep fighting. Escape, hoping to survive the day and enter the second level. As time goes by, shwa. Shwa. Here. Gradually, some contestants are eliminated due to death, but almost everyone will pay attention to the power was concentrated on the extremely high-ranking players such as Clark, and the remaining ones ranked in the top 100 were also watched by everyone. As for the bottom players like Jason, except for Renault and Dylan, they have been forgotten by everyone in the hall. Half a day passed quickly. On the ranking list, Clark from the Cairo Empire was still ranked first, leading everyone with an absolute advantage. The top 100 and more than 20 people are almost all 7th level Imperial Spiritual Masters, and the rest are all 6th level high-level Spiritual Masters. As for the 6th level intermediate and low-level ones, there is no such thing as a Spiritual Master among the top 100. If it were a normal trial, there would never be such a consequence. After all, among these 6th level intermediate and low-level Spiritual Masters, some geniuses are not weaker than those 6th level high-level Spiritual Masters. Among those 6th level Senior Spiritual Masters, there are definitely geniuses who can compete with the 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Masters. However, under such competition rules, it is difficult for lower-level players to stand out. Of course, this is not absolute. As time goes by, high-level players will have a greater advantage at the beginning, but if low-level players play steadily and do not rush for success, they will rush into the group of spiritual beasts recklessly, defeat them one by one, or delay the time. The distance that can be traveled in the end may not be lower than those of higher levels. It's as if a large number of 6th level spiritual beasts appear on a certain level of the phantom world. Some low-level 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master players may not be able to pass this level if they are besieged, while some 6th level high-level Spiritual Masters, as long as players at this level are careful, they might kill more spiritual beasts than this 7th level low-level Emperor Spirit Master. And if those players could survive the day and advance to the next level, they would definitely be far ahead of the 7th level low-level Imperial Spirit Masters in terms of rankings. Therefore, everyone in the hall showed great patience. They were in separate groups, talking to each other and commenting on the players from all over the mainland. Haha, what's going on with Jason in the northwest of the continent? He still has 0 points and is still a 6th level Senior Spiritual Master. This is really weird. Suddenly, a voice suddenly sounded in the hall, which seemed extremely abrupt. 0 points is impossible, right? Some people sounded suspicious, with disbelief in their voices, and then they all focused on the bottom of the rankings. Really, he's a player from Xijing, mainland China, currently ranked last on the rankings. Jifen, this kind of thing will happen? What's going on with Jason from the northwest? It would actually be 0 points. Could it be that he didn't even kill an iron-backed earth dragon? He is a 6th level Senior Spiritual Master. Facing 105th level iron-backed earth dragons, he won't be running away all the time, right? Everyone is suspicious. At the same time, their eyes fell on Xuanfeng and others. What made them suspicious was not Jason's ranking, nor Jason's 0 points, but Jason's status as a 6-year-old, The second-to-last senior spiritual master didn't even have a single point. You know, the second-to-last was a 6th-level low-level spiritual master who had been eliminated long ago. He also killed several iron-backed earth dragons. While everyone was talking about it, Tim and others from the spiritual master tower also looked at Jason, who was ranked last, with doubt. Carol, this is the one you mentioned who once killed a man. A Northwest genius who is a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritualist player. Tim said in astonishment. Regarding Jason, Tim was still very impressed after listening to Carol's story, but his ranking at this moment made Tim a little unbelievable. Yes, Lord Tim. Carol felt as if a black line was coming out of his forehead. I don't know how he came in last place. But as far as I know, Jason is relatively low-key. He was also the last in the Northwest selection competition. That's what stood out. Low-key? Tim smiled and said nothing. It is good for players to keep a low profile, but there is no such a low-key method. A 6th-level senior spiritual master has not even killed a 5th-level iron-backed earth dragon. What the hell are you doing? Tim didn't delve too deeply into it. Anyway, he had already made up his mind about Jason's potential. Even if such a person wins the competition, Tim would only give the opponent the status of a peripheral disciple at most. It's not worth much. No matter what he did, Tim didn't care. How did he know that the reason why Jason hadn't killed an iron-backed dragon until now was because he completely regarded the trial space as a place to practice his physical skills? An important competition is regarded as a training occasion. Even Tim, who is the elder of the spiritual master tower, would never have thought of this. Then what happened to Jason? How could he be the last one? It's simply impossible. On the other side, Benjamin's face was also full of doubts. Facing that doubt, there was still a hint of anxiety. Haha, what are you worried about? What's Jason's ranking? What does it matter? Besides, Elder Coughlin had a smile on his face. Elder Coughlin, if Jason can't stand out in this competition, then the matter of him joining the Elixir Master Tower after such a long time with Jason as time went by, was extremely impressed by Jason's attainments in elixir science. He didn't want Jason to be unable to enter the Elixir Master Tower because he failed to win the competition. Even if Jason is in, it doesn't matter if he was eliminated in last place in this first round of trials. I promised to give him a share of senior disciples. As long as Jason is willing, I will definitely do it. If nothing else, it's just the report on the characteristics of the spiritual element particles submitted by Jason and Benjamin is enough for him to join our spiritual medicine master tower and take this position. Kevlin said faintly, his tone calm. On the side, was silent. Although he said that, and as Master Sevlin, he did have that ability, but he wanted to let someone who had not won the competition enter the Elixir Tower, and suddenly become a magician. A high-level disciple, even Elder Sevlin, has to spend a lot of resources and popularity to do it. At the end of the second day, when all players enter the trial space. The first round of trials of the Continental Elite competition is ongoing. Hundreds of players have already withdrawn from the competition, but there are still nearly 1,000 trial spaces where fighting continues. Unlike all the high-level players who kept rushing forward at the beginning, at this moment, almost all players are stagnant in a certain level of trial space. Most of the players have encountered difficulties and cannot act as usual. Start killing like that, moving forward. In the trial space on the second level, Jason's whole body was constantly fluttering in the mountain forest like a phantom, and around his body were densely packed 205th-level spiritual beasts, ghost-patterned snow leopards, roaring and constantly attacking Jason. Sun launched an attack. Jason once encountered a 5th-level spiritual beast, ghost-patterned snow, when he was looking for violent spiritual fruits in the Kingdom of Orlando. In terms of strength, attack power, and defense, ghost-patterned snow leopard was stronger than the iron-backed earth dragon, which was also a 5th-level spirit beast. It's a little worse, but in terms of speed, the human snow leopard, which is almost comparable to some sixth-order spirit beasts, is much faster than the iron-backed earth dragon. What's more important is that the human snow leopard is smaller. Each player has to deal with a much larger number of human snow leopards than the iron-backed earth dragon in the same period of time. Moreover, in an environment like a mountain forest, it is also limited. It affects the performance of the players, but it is extremely beneficial to human snow leopard. Therefore, in terms of difficulty, it is much more difficult to fight against 200 snow leopards in the forest than against 100 iron-backed earth dragons in the wilderness. Most of the 6th-level low-level spiritual master contestants were eliminated in this second level, and even some of the 6th-level intermediate spiritual masters and 6th-level high-level spiritual masters were eliminated in this level. Spiritual beasts of the same level are stronger than spiritual masters. If the 6th-level senior spiritual masters are not careful, the 5th-level ghostly patterned snow leopard is enough to cause fatal damage to them. However, in the mountain forest, Jason was like a gust of wind. No matter how the densely packed snow leopards pounced, they could not hurt him at all. Spiritual consciousness, perception, body as light as wind, as soft as water, Jason murmured to himself, in 2 consecutive days of evasion, he has found some dodge feeling. His footsteps are like a breeze. Normally, he would be vague and uncertain, leaving traces of footsteps in the mountain forest. Every time he took a step forward, a snow leopard with dark stripes would flutter past the previous position. His spiritual consciousness covered the entire mountain forest like a giant net, and his gaze, keenly watching any signs of movement around him, Jason had already made some predictions before the ghost-striped snow leopards pounced out. Time passed minute by second. Countdown, there is still time until the next day. Last minutes left? Jason finally stopped, with a smile on his lips. As soon as he paused, more than 20 snow leopards leaped up around him at the same time, aiming at Jason's location and pounced. Come on. It's time to enter that 3rd level. Jason's eyes narrowed, facing the dim snow leopards that filled the sky, but there was no trace of panic in his eyes. The heavy sword that had been carried behind him flew away like lightning, and the dark black light pierced the sky. Puff. Puff, puff. Puff. A series of head-cracking sounds came, and the heads of more than 20 ghost-striped snow leopards in midair exploded in an instant, and corpses and blood poured down like raindrops all over the sky. Roar. 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 In this trial space, all the ghost-patterned snow leopards roared without any fear, and rushed towards Jason without hesitation. Jason's eyes were cold as he walked in the forest. A bloody journey. 3 minutes, only 3 minutes later, only the corpses of Yuan Shiwajia were left on the ground in the entire mountain forest. The 200 Yuan Shiwajia were all killed instantly, and not one of them was alive. Boom. Jason teleported into the trial space on the 3rd level of the Phantom World. Are there 106th level Thorn Earth Dragons in this 3rd level? Looking at the rules description, Jason appeared in the dense jungle with a smile on his face. You can continue practicing your body skills again. On the 3rd day of the Phantom World, in the administrative center of the Twin Towers, groups of team leaders and heads of major forces were sitting together, laughing and talking. Once this trial started, it continued without any pause, and the vast majority of people present did not leave the hall of the administrative center for a moment, always paying attention to the rankings. The weakest ones who can come as leaders of major forces are 7th-level Emperor Spiritual Masters, and some are 8th-level Emperor Spiritual Masters. All of them are extremely terrifying and powerful. For them, sometimes a cultivation can take a very long time, and it doesn't matter how many days you wait here. Only those with average strength or those who have important matters in reality will leave the administrative center, but after handling the matter, they will come back soon. No one wants to miss this first round of trials, which is the most exciting moment. Now, the trial has entered its 3rd day, and the trial has entered its most intense state. Almost every moment, a contestant dies and then exits the trial space. In the lobby of the Twin Towers Administrative Center, there are already a large number of eliminated players. They are all talking to each other and paying attention to the list on the leaderboard. Swish. 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 Another series of names turned red, followed by the label of death. After a while, the eliminated contestants all emerged from the white light. He walked out of the palace gate, and after the spiritual stones in his hands were recovered by the staff of the Twin Towers, they all returned to the ranks of his own forces. Master, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Baijin, the first genius of the Thad Alliance, came to the Northwest team and looked at Cameron, the leader of the Thad Alliance, with guilt on his face. It's nothing. You must have learned a lot after this life and death trial. Feel free to understand it yourself. Cameron said calmly with a calm face. As the #1 genius in the Thad Alliance, Baijin is a 6th-level senior spiritual master, but among the more than 1,000 players, there are nearly 700 6th-level senior spiritual masters and more than 27th-level masters. There are more than 700 imperial spiritual masters competing for the top 100 spots. Knowing the strength of his disciples, Cameron had no hope in his heart. Being able to let his disciples experience this fanatical atmosphere and the scene of so many masters, this was the original thought in Cameron's mind, and this trial actually took place in the Phantom World, allowing Baijin to experience the taste of death. Cameron already felt quite satisfied. Yes, Master. Baigan nodded, and then returned to the Northwest team. Shurjen, were you eliminated too? Dong Bao, a player from the Thad Alliance, said with regret on his face, as soon as you are eliminated, no one in our Thad Alliance will enter the top 100 in this competition. No way, what about the 4th level? The spirit beasts are too scary. There was a wry smile on Baijian's face. There are 200 lightning leopards. Although the lightning leopards are 6th-level spirit beasts, they are extremely good at speed. When they increase their speed, they can compete with some 7th-level ones. Compared with the spiritual beasts of the same level, I originally wanted to wait for a day, but I didn't expect that I still couldn't survive. I really don't understand how there are so many players who can survive the attacks of so many lightning leopards. Beacon shook his head. Haha, it's good that you can enter the 4th level. Unlike me, who was eliminated on the 3rd level. Those more than 100 6th-level Thorn Earth Dragons are the 6th-level intermediate spiritual masters I have. I couldn't resist, and I was torn into pieces in an instant. Pobo didn't have much frustration on his face. As a 6th-level intermediate spiritual master, he never thought that he could break into the top 100. By the way, Baobua, how many players are still in the trials in our Northwest? How many are in the top 100? Baijian asked, curiously. Are you still in the trial? Bob looked at the ranking list and said, there are 5 more. Dini Shah and Temujin are currently on the 5th level, one is 19th, the other is 23rd, Claire and Brooks the Weirs in the Kingdom are all on the 4th floor, ranked 137th and 13th floor, ranked 617th. 3rd floor? 617th? Beacon was stunned for a moment. Why is Jason's ranking so low? And it's still on the 3rd level? I think there are only less than 300 players who have not been eliminated. He is actually ranked 617th. Beacon's face, with astonishment, he felt incredible. Paobo had a wry smile on his face. Who knows, this Jason started from the 1st floor. Every time, he waited until time ran out before going to the next floor. He probably had to. It's almost the 4th day to enter the 4th level. Among all the players who are still in the trial, he is the only one still hanging around on the 3rd level. If you look around, there are a lot of people scolding him. Baigan listened to the surroundings and heard many players cursing in the distance. Who is this Jason? He is only on the 3rd level. He has no ability and is not eliminated. He has to mix in slowly, too shameless. If I had known this, I wouldn't have been eliminated now. Excellent. Really excellent. I have seen shameless people, but I have never seen such shameless people. Listening to the curses of these players, Baijin, but there was a sneer on his face. Shameless? Incompetent? Just watch with your eyes wide open. I will definitely scare you when the time comes. All the players from the Northwest naturally know Jason, although in this trial space, he is a 6th level senior spiritual master who may suffer a lot compared to the 7th level imperial spiritual master, but entering the top 100, in the hearts of all the players in the Northwest, for Jason, still confident. The entire trial space has 10 floors in total. On the first level, there are 105th level iron-backed earth dragons. On the second level, there are 205th level human snow leopards. On the third level, there are 106th level thorn earth dragons. On the fourth level, there are 206th level lightning leopards. Obviously, the strength of each level of spiritual beasts is constantly improving, and the difficulty brought to the players is also becoming more and more difficult. For example, some 6th level low-level and intermediate spiritual master level players basically fail on the 2nd and 3rd levels, while 6th level high-level spiritual masters are concentrated on the 3rd and 4th levels, especially it is the 4th floor, which is almost the cemetery of the players. Most of the players died on the 4th floor. As the 6th level senior spiritual master contestants were eliminated one after another, the number of contestants in the trial space continued to decrease. Jason, who had been leisurely and spent a whole day on each floor, was also scolded. Getting bigger. But despite the bombardment from the outside world, the constant shouts of curses, questions, and insults, Jason in the trial space remained as stable as a rock, constantly exercising his physical skills according to his own plan. On the 4th day of the trial, a large group of people gathered densely in the hall of the administrative center. There were more than 1,000 contestants who started the trial, but now there are only less than 30 contestants left who are still continuing. Those who can still survive in the trial space without being eliminated are definitely elite-level figures. The trial has entered the 4th day, and several fast 7th level low-level Emperor Spirit Master level players have been eliminated. The remaining players are all wasting their time on the 5th floor, but 2 players are on the 6th floor. They are Leonardo, the 7th level intermediate Phantom Imperial Spiritual Master of the Salem Empire, and Leonardo, the Imperial Spiritual Master of the Wei-Tian Empire. Sophia, the 7th level intermediate light-type Imperial Spiritual Master. As for Clark, the number 1 genius from the Cairo Empire, the 7th level advanced gold-type Imperial Spiritual Master, he is in the 7th level with an absolute lead. However, what everyone present is paying attention to is not Clark, nor Leonardo and Sophia, but Jason, who is unique in the entire trial space and is currently the only one still on the 4th level. This Jason, the 4th day is almost over, and he is still on the 4th level and has not been eliminated. Looking at his points, it seems that he has not even killed a level 6 lightning leopard on the 4th level. This kid won't have to wait until the 5th day to enter the 5th floor, right? This kid is currently on the 5th floor, and he can definitely enter the top 100. Someone exclaimed, Jason is currently on the 5th floor after the 4th floor. Not a single lightning leopard has been killed, but once you enter the 5th floor, whether you enter the 5th floor because you have killed all the lightning leopards, or you enter the 5th floor because time is up, your points will be lost instantly. If there is a huge increase, then you can definitely enter the top 100. Oh my god, no, then Jason must die from the trial space quickly. I am currently on the 5th level, so I will be eliminated. Among the crowd, a man from the Cairo Empire players pray constantly. By now, the top 100 players have almost been finalized, and the remaining less than 30 players are fighting for a higher ranking. As geniuses, everyone wants to challenge their own limits, and no one will do it because they have reached their limit. If you are in the top 100, you will voluntarily withdraw from the trial. Moreover, the higher your ranking in the trial, the greater your reputation will be, and it will also bring great fame to your own power. While everyone in the hall was talking a lot, Renault, Xuanfeng and others were calm and composed, without a trace of worry. In the 4th level of space, there are 206th level lightning leopards. Although they are powerful, in the hearts of Renault and others, Jason Ongue still has great hope to break through. Among the participating teams from the Northwest this time, 3 people have been confirmed to be among the top 100, including Denisha and Temujin. The other one is Claire, who is still in the 5th level trial and has become the Northwest team, the dark horse in the team. As for Jason, everyone still feels very confident. In the past mainland elite competition, the Northwest team was completely destroyed almost every time. This time at least 3 people can enter the top 100 and become disciples of the Twin Towers. For Xuanfeng for others, they are already satisfied and could not be more satisfied. In the 4th level trial space of the Phantom World, a golden lightning leopard with a head length of 3 meters, like golden lightning, kept pounced on Jason in the open space. Lightning leopard is the fastest 6th level spirit beast. Its instantaneous burst speed is inferior to that of ordinary 7th level imperial spirit beasts. Its only disadvantage is that it is too large. Its 3-meter-long body is like a car, there will inevitably be gaps between the flutters. Of course, among spiritual beasts, a 3-meter-long body is nothing, but for humans, it is inevitable that there will be gaps. Boom. 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 Intensive flapping sounds came, and every moment, there were dozens of lightning leopards roaring and rushing toward Jason, and among these dozen lightning leopards on the periphery, there were nearly 200 lightning leopards roaring, wanting to join the hunt. As dozens of lightning leopards soared, a giant golden net seemed to appear between the sky and the earth, covering the place where Jason was. A piece of space, completely surrounded by it. Dozens of lightning leopards filled the entire space by themselves. Coupled with the waving of their sharp claws and the biting of their sharp teeth, the dozens of lightning leopards were enough to cover the entire space. A piece of space was completely blocked. Most players would break out of the encirclement when the lightning dipper had just leaped over and before it formed an encirclement, and then relied on its own strength to kill all the lightning leopards one by one. However, the hero on the ground Sen, facing the siege of the lightning leopard, did not panic at all. His footsteps moved slightly, not very fast, as if he was walking. But Jason walked so slowly, but he kept piercing the middle of all the lightning leopards. No matter how the 200 lightning leopards flew, they couldn't catch any part of Jason's body, not even a hair. I can't touch one. No matter how intensive the attacks organized by the lightning leopards are, sometimes it feels like the sharp claws are about to tear into Jason's body, but in a trance, Jason's body seems to be between virtual and physical, calmly hiding away. Past. Wandering in the garden, strolling in the garden. Faced with endless attacks, Jason murmured, but there was a confident smile in his eyes. Amidst the constant attacks of countless lightning leopards, Jason slowly closed his eyes. With his eyes closed, his body was like a leaf falling in the wind, fluttering between countless sharp claws. The speed was not very fast, but he was able to dodge every attack just right. After 4 days of practice, I finally made him. My body skills have reached the highest level. It turns out that the most important thing about dodge is not speed. Jason murmured to himself, but his mind suddenly became enlightened and enlightened. In his perception, everything around him was clearly reflected in his mind. The vibration of the earth. The breath of the wind. The vibration of the spiritual element. The vibration of the sound wave. The brightness and darkness of the light. Everything was presented in his mind one by one, making him there is a refreshing feeling of being in control of the overall situation. During these 4 days, Jason was constantly dodging at all times, constantly improving his body skills, and dodging for 4 consecutive days. Jason did not fight back once, and all relied on his body's instinctive reactions. For 4 days of continuous dodge, the number of attacks faced can definitely be calculated in billions. An adventurer who has been fighting spiritual beasts all year round will probably not be able to dodge as many attacks as Jason did in these 4 days. The number of dodges. And Jason finally took this opportunity to practice his body skills to the highest level where he can do whatever he wants, reaching a perfect level. There is still more than an hour before the 5th day. Forget it, now that the body skills are completed, it's better to enter the 5th floor early to see what's inside. While strolling in the courtyard, Jason pulled out the épée from behind with a swish and looked at the 200 lightning leopards around him, with a smile on his face. A hint of coldness. In the hall of the administrative center, as time goes by, more and more contestants are eliminated from the trial. Now, in the entire trial space, there are only 3 people who are still undergoing trials. Clark on the 7th floor, Sophia on the 6th floor, and Jason on the 4th floor. As for the 20 or so players on the 5th floor and Leonardo on the 6th floor, they were among the previous ones. Over time, they were eliminated one after another. 5th floor. This Jason has rushed into the 5th floor of the trial space. Suddenly, a cry of surprise broke out from the crowd. This time it seems that there is still a little while before the 5th day. How did you enter early? Jason's ranking suddenly jumped to 38th. Among all the players, there is only the 5th level. I didn't expect Jason, who has always been slow and leisurely, to actually enter the 5th floor. This is too fake. And his points are the same as those of the Emperor Spirit Master players who killed 200 lightning leopards when they entered the 5th level. In other words, he actually killed all 200 lightning leopards before. With this strength, he should have rushed up long ago. Why did he stay on each floor for so long? What on earth is Jason doing? But he should be eliminated on the 5th floor. What a joke. After this guy is eliminated later, I will definitely see what this top guy looks like. Seeing Jason enter the 5th floor, the whole hall was buzzing with discussion. By the way, do you think Jason will stay on the 5th floor for a whole day? Someone suddenly said in the crowd. How is this possible? If he could stay on the 5th floor for a day, wouldn't he enter the 6th floor? You must know that there are only 5 people entering the 6th floor, and they are at least 7th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Masters. He, a 6th level Senior Spiritual Master, has reached the top of the sky by the 5th level. That's right, I think it's impossible. Many people agreed, but they were still a little unsure. After all, Jason had previously, it was a huge blow to them. Whoa. At this moment, a voice came indicating that another player had died. Haha, look, let me tell you, not long after Jason entered the 5th floor, he was kicked down. He was just that lucky. Here, the one who died was Sophia of the Wei-Tian Empire. Someone looked at it, he glanced at the big screen and said. No. Everyone looked at the big screen and were dumbfounded. Sure enough, Sophia's name on the big screen turned red, with the word death marked on the back. Whoa. Before they could catch their breath, another voice came. It should be him now, a player said angrily. His eyes fell on Jason's name, but he was stunned for a moment. Jason's name was still shining, and the player immediately looked at the top of the ranking list. Clark's name, which had always been ranked first on the 7th floor, turned red with the word death behind it. This, in the trial space of the Phantom World, Jason was the only one left at this moment, and his name was brightly lit on the big screen. There was sudden silence in the entire hall, without any sound. At the entrance to the Phantom World, 2 figures walked out one after another. The one walking in front was Sophia, the first genius of the Wei-Tian Empire. Her whole body was beautiful. Under the reflection of the white light in the Phantom World, it looks extremely holy, like a fairy in a painting, walking down from the sky. And walking behind her was a young man with long golden hair and wearing a golden spiritual master's robe. A faint golden halo emerged from his body, covering his whole body. Against the backdrop of the white light, he seemed to be piercing the sky. The golden-armored god of war came with a domineering spirit and soaring spiritual power. After Sophia and Clark walked out of the Phantom World, they saw the dense crowd present. They were confident in their own strength and thought they would receive a warm response from the crowd. However, what they responded to was a strange silence. Everyone in the entire hall stood up straight, staring at the big screen above the two people without blinking. It was as if some divine object had been unearthed behind the two of them, making them unable to take their eyes away. This? What is going on? What are they looking at? Although in Clark's arrogant heart, he did not need the cheers of others to highlight his strength, but after seeing the expressions of everyone, they still felt bursts of dissatisfaction in their hearts. The two of them, who were comfortable and didn't know what happened, immediately turned around and looked towards where everyone was looking. On the big screen above the two of them, the names of all the contestants were in blood red, which represented death and withdrawal from the trial. However, there was a name at the top of the rankings, which was still flashing white light. On a big blood red screen, it looked particularly dazzling. Sophia and Clark were immediately dumbfounded. Who was leading this ranking? Even if he failed, how come there are still people undergoing trials in the phantom world? Their brains stopped functioning for a moment, and they woke up after a while, looking at the unfamiliar name Jason. Especially after seeing the northwest behind Jason and the level of the 6th level senior spiritual master, Clark's fists suddenly clenched. There are actually people in the trial space who failed later than him. Clark couldn't help shouting in his heart, and his eyes instantly became extremely cold. Although Jason is currently on the 5th level of the trial space, and although Jason's current ranking is poor, the fact that he is still in the trial space and was eliminated later than Clark makes Clark's heart feeling a little angry. This anger is so absurd, but it is extremely real. As a 7th level senior imperial spiritual master, the highest level genius in this elite competition on the entire continent, the arrogance in Clark's heart is so powerful that it makes people uncomfortable. Dare to imagine that he must be far ahead of others in any aspect without allowing the slightest stain. But now, Jason's presence made him feel as if someone had slapped him hard on the face. Clark turned around and slowly walked into the Cairo Empire's team. His face was cold, without the slightest expression, and the aura on his body is so sharp that people dare not approach.